man. Chat. Oh, Jesus. Oh my gosh. I was eating chips earlier and I think I cut the corner of my mouth. Ow! It was Miss Vicky's salt and vinegar chips. So very, very sharp. Hey, wow, 95 stream streak, damn, double 95 stream streak, holy crap, Ola, 5 more to 100, yay! You speak French, lady? Yeah, I do. Tabernacle. Here. Hello, 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 hello. I just showered just for you. Thank you. I have to shower tonight. I don't want to, but I got to. Tu parles français. Je suis pas un de toi. Québécois. Tabernacle. Chris. Hey. Hello, Chad. What's up? How you doing? The roof? Not true. Liar. Liar, liar, pants for hire. There's no freaking roof here. We gotta kill that then. Hi, Makima fan. YouTube rats get special hellos. Twitch chats just have to be there. Guys, I opened Steam the other day and I was looking at the Steam summer sale stuff. Wow. I made a poll in the gen chat that you might not have been privy to. Hi, Cat. Get on Twitch this time. Understandable. With my studio so dark, it hurts my eyes with the brightness from my monitor. Maybe I can fix that. No, I don't have anything to fix that. You just gotta look at my beautiful, beautiful eyeballs. Can you fix my headache too? Yeah. McDonald's French fries. Did you guys hear that frog in my throat when I was whispering Cheetos? How embarrassing. I would suck at ASMR. I would just have a frog in my throat 90% of the time, and I would sound like a smoker, chain smoker. What are some games I should get with the summer sale? Can you give me a headache, throw me around? No, but I can do this. Hello. Thank you for being the cutest cat in the world. You're welcome. Don't mind if I do. Hello everybody. Hello chat. And welcome to React Wednesday. I was gonna play a game today, but when I woke up I was like, it's Wednesday. And we have not reacted in a long time. So we have a lot of videos waiting for us. But then as the day went on longer, the weather turned out to be nicer than it said that it was gonna be, which is why I'm not gonna have schedules anymore, because it is unpredictable. So, but since I already said that I'm streaming today, I'm like, okay, well, I'm streaming. It's not that bad. Will we ever get Bikini Cuemew MK2? Yeah, for 100 more bucks. You'll make it pretty cool down. Oh, another team! Yeah, fair. Only 100. I mean, I guess it's not technically a bikini, but it does look like swimwear. Yeah, it's QCon! Come on, ow! I was attacked by my own headphones. I was trying to adjust them and then they smacked back against my head. Ow! Beep, bop, bop. Wasn't your old model like that? And that model was banned 4 times. This model has been banned 0 times. Knock on wood. Oh. It's crazy though. Looking back on the clips from my old model, this is me. You know? The other one, it's like, yeah, I was cute and all. It was more like chaotic and stuff. But this one is me. You know? This is who I am. Cute cat. Thank you. Oh, she can help it. I got massive bills upcoming. That's okay. You'll just have to beg other rats. Cutest thing ever. Really? Prove it. Other one was bratty chaos. This one is cute chaos. Hey, this one's bratty too. Here. Ow! Does anyone have an alcohol swab? Oh my gosh. Guys, I'm so excited for Reciv this weekend. Oh my gosh. I have a freaking group this time. It's gonna be so awesome. I was too shy to join another group, so I had to make a group myself. But I think it's gonna be really good. I'm gonna make friends. And guess what, chat? There's gonna be mail on stream. Ooh! But that's okay because they're all homosexuals. And besides, in Reciv this time I'm a dog. I got that dog in me. I got that dog up mailing with another mail. Yeah, if I can have anything to do with it. Hey. I just realized I don't know if I checked my Yowie Twitter today. Hold on, guys. Yowie break. Hold on. Cat is a dog. I'm gonna be the dog for Reciv this time. I'm gonna be Scooby-Q. Yowie. Yeah. What is all the sex? Show me the gay sex. Take your clothes off. Now. Whoa. There's Yowie, but there's no gay. Whoa. No, there's no gay sex, Yowie. Maybe another day. I'm so excited to react. Wide Among Us gay sex. Not? Oh! Whoa, guys, hold on, I'm dizzy. Whoa, I'm lightheaded. Whoa, 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 whoa. Ow, of despair. Wow. That was weird. I don't know what just happened. I think one of you needs to be put down. Now my tongue feels weird. Guys, am I gonna die? Am I having a stroke attack? Now, whatever. It's time to react! Yeah! Should we start with the chilling? No. We'll end with chilling. Okay. I think it's okay. I think those are the same numbers. I don't know. It's very small. I hope it's not small enough that you can't see it. Guys! Now that we're out of that scene, now it looks like nothing has happened. So you have to give me $100 so I can get to the next goal. Stat! Gimme. Oh, I have ice cream. When is the opportune time to have ice cream? Scream on gift subs. And Aiden and the cat. Hey. Maybe not right after eating chips, but that's the best time to have ice cream. Can't freaking see those numbers. Did it do it right? Yay! It did it right! Yay! Yay! Legend of Wrath! Sorry for the delay. I had to make sure that it did it correctly. Because I don't know if I did the subs right, but it looks like I did. So, yay! Here. Thank you so much, Legend of Wrath. Here. Thank you so much for indoctrinating 5 cubers. Thank you so much. Here. Let's freaking go. Thank you so much. Yay. Closer and closer to the next goal. We get closer and closer. Inching closer. Ever closer. Yay! Jump in the pool. Q, so brave of you to be near the ocean. Thank you so much. I am sacrificing greatly for you guys. That's how much I love you guys. I'm making content near the ocean. Here. Someone outside. Whoa!
So close.
So close! We're so close. Oh my gosh. So freaking close. Thank you so much for the biddies. That's your new name now. It said that there was a thunderstorm warning, so maybe that's why it's really humid. Yes, more money, closer to the goal. But now, we're gonna watch the internet's deadliest video. One video, 9 deaths. Ooh. Is the audio good?
It appeared totally innocent. In a small room somewhere in the Kohistan region of Pakistan.
Guys, this is scary stuff. I'm gonna pee my pants.
4 women sat on the floor, each clapping their hands and singing a traditional Kohistani song. With them were 2 men, one seen dancing beside them, and another seen recording the moment on a grainy video taken on his old cell phone. The footage captured the impromptu after-party of a wedding that the women and men had separately attended earlier that day, an event that transpired sometime in May 2010. Shortly after this recording ended, the group dispersed, and each person returned to their respective homes, where the celebration eventually became a distant memory, their lives continuing on as if it had never even happened. At least for a time. Approximately 2 years later, the whereabouts and safety of every individual shown in this video would be called into question, following a disturbing admission from a Kohistani local. An admission that began a multi-long-year search for answers to a conspiracy that traced back to the very moment this recording began. A moment that may have ultimately sealed the fate of 9 individuals, in what has since become known as the 2012 Kohistan video incident.
I think this requires ice cream. And it's not just because I want to have ice cream. Thank you very much. Children singing is haunting. Honestly, anyone singing in Greenie video is haunting. I know how you guys survived back in the old times. What kind of ice cream? ASMR. Talenti, gelato, caramel cookie crunch. And then I have a raspberry sorbet. You have a mini fridge in your room? Ben and Jerry I don't know that flavor. I do like Ben and Jerry's though. Ice cream. Cuemew isn't a fancy flavors. Well, I am a fancy lady. I am a fancy little cat. My mom says it's a champagne taste on a beer budget. But joke's on her because I don't like champagne or beer. What did I miss? There's a 6 people recorded a video of 4 women clapping and singing a song, and they all went missing. Ooh. And I have ice cream.
I'd be willing to bet that many of you have a massive to-do list that only seems to be growing by the day. And for a
That's the scariest thing that could have happened. Wow.
head to ZocDoc.com/Nick Crowley to get started and check that
ZocDoc.
appointment off your to-do list. Thanks to
Why
ZocDoc
didn't
for
she book a top-rated doctor today? What the hell is happening in America? You guys have doctor apps.
helping us all take better care of our health.
App down. Whoa, that could kind of look
On
matching.
June 4th, 2012, a press conference was held in the city of Abbottabad, Pakistan. The speaker, a man named Afzal Kohistani, made the
never
long
mind.
trek from his home
Whoa.
in Kohistan, high in the mountains.
Dude, that's so funny. Bro was so attractive in his side profile, but his front-facing profile was all wrong.
To spread the word of a horrific incident that had occurred in the previous days. And he didn't just have a story to tell, but he also had a video to share.
He kind of looks like Aragorn in his side profile.
With him was that grainy cell phone recording taken 2 years earlier, showing the group of 4 women and 2 men dancing after a local wedding ceremony. And while the footage itself was far from alarming, it was the context that Afzal gave it that would eventually capture the world's attention. As according to the man, each of the women shown within this video had suffered a terrible fate, and it was all due to the existence of the footage itself. For years, the video had been lost on one of the men's phones, buried in a sea of other media, and destined to be seen only by his eyes. But fate had different plans, as for unknown reasons, in May of 2012, that footage leaked online. There it went unnoticed by most of the world, as in all honesty, the video itself just isn't that interesting. But in Kohistan, where it was filmed, it went completely viral. It was shared from villager to villager until practically the entire region had seen it, with it becoming a point of discussion for most. As for locals of that area, this video was far from normal. In fact, for many, it actually depicted evidence of a crime. Kohistan is a region bound by its traditions. For centuries, they've tried to preserve their culture and way of life. So much so that any breaches of said traditions are taken so seriously that they're viewed as legal matters. And in this footage, the women could be seen breaking several of them. For starters, women in Kohistan are not allowed to congregate with men from outside of their families. Doing so is blatantly illegal, and in this video, the women and men have no relation. On top of that, they're also from different villages, which is another infraction. But perhaps the biggest crime committed in this clip was that the women were clapping and singing in the presence of these men, despite the area having strict rules against dancing with members of the opposite sex. As a result, when this footage was passed around,
So, you can't hang out with people who aren't your relatives, and you can't hang out with people who are from other villages. Are they like the old English royalty and they want lots of incest to happen? What the hell?
it was actually viewed as evidence of crimes committed against Kohistani tradition, and it was taken very seriously. Now, despite being part of Pakistan and falling under its laws, Kohistan is unique in the sense that geographically it's next to impossible to effectively govern. It's nestled in the intersection of 3 major mountain ranges, making accessing it very difficult, and enforcing the country's laws next to impossible, as the area practically lives in its own isolation. Instead, the region is composed of largely self-governing villages who have their own sets of rules that they play by, and when a crime is alleged, they'll hold something called a jirga, which is essentially a tribal council comprised of village elders who determine if the party or parties are guilty and what their punishment should be. And oftentimes, these punishments will be most harsh when the crimes committed go against their tradition. And this video allegedly did just that. And so, soon after its release, a jirga was held, and discussions about what should be done to these—
Don't forget about the no clapping singing rule, of course. The worst of all.
Women began. The story that Afzal was sharing so far was one that wouldn't have been shocking to many, as this had just become protocol for villages like Kohistan. But what was shocking was the punishment that these women allegedly received. According to Afzal, once the footage was made public, all 4 of the women shown within the video, along with one other girl who wasn't pictured but had allegedly helped coordinate this gathering, had been rounded up and thrown inside a small room about the size of a closet that served as a makeshift prison. And inside, each day was misery. Every morning, the door would be opened and each woman would be doused with boiling water, causing their skin to bubble and blister. At night, the door would open again, and this time, the women would be covered in burning hot embers and coal from the day's fire. They were tortured in unimaginable ways, until finally on May 30th, 2012, when at 2 in the morning, the jirga gave the final verdict that all of the women should be executed. The door opened one final time that morning at 2 a.m., and one by one, the women were woken up, restrained, and their throats were cut. This was an appalling claim by Afzal. If true, what they did to these women was not only outrageously extreme considering the crime, but also very illegal, as jirgas didn't have the right to sentence someone to death. And because of this, those watching the press conference were left horrified. Honor killings aren't necessarily a new thing in Pakistan, especially in remote villages, but this level of sadism was unimaginable, and all for a blatantly harmless gathering. And yet Afzal claimed that not only had no one in Kohistan opposed the jirga's shocking decision, but even the family members of these women supported it. And they supported it so much so that they were the ones who carried out the torture and the eventual killings. Their fathers, uncles, brothers all partook in scalding them with water, burning them with embers, and cutting their throats, and no one tried to stop it, except for Afzal. He had caught wind of the girls' torture while it was happening, and actively tried to intervene by alerting Kohistani journalists, though when this failed and they went through with the executions.
He's handsome and humanitarian. If you try to stop it, make it cooked as well, though. That's true. It reminds me of, I'll put away ice cream. Just a little bit left. It reminds me of like the fucked up stuff from like ancient China, whereas if you did something bad enough, you could sentence 9 generations of your family to death. That's not ancient. The CCP does that now. Prove it. Holy crap, Lola. So much of the world is so messed up. He's common in imperial palaces. And I know that because I'm reading a gallery about it. That's where I get my knowledge from. The world has always been freaked up and weird. I know because I watched the Apothecary Diaries. Whoa. How are you gonna make a joke about Allie? His Apothecary Diaries is like for the ladies, right? And Allie is for ladies. Whatever. Make up the joke in your brain. Hey, cat love. Thank you. Is this cat wearing a cape? First of all, yes. Second of all, it's cat, duh. Not cat. Here. Hello, Kion. Yowie. I want to get back to Yowie, so pitter patter.
He left the region to alert the government of Pakistan and the rest of the world to the atrocity that had happened in Khoistan. But for Afzal, this wasn't just about avenging the deaths of these girls, as he had another very important reason for speaking out.
He's in the
as
video.
shown in this footage, were Afzal's 2 brothers, whose involvement, he claimed, had also led to them receiving death sentences, with both brothers going into hiding in order to avoid being killed. This press conference was essentially Afzal's way of trying to save his brothers, as he knew that they could be found and killed at any moment, spurring Afzal to act, even at the
Killed because they boogie down to some freaking innocent singing and clapping. Wow.
risk of his own safety.
He's mocking. That's what I said. He's a freaking look smaxer.
As locals had caught wind of his previous attempts to speak with journalists, and in response, that same juror that had sentenced these women to death had sent an angry mob of 40 to 50 men to Afzal's home in order to silence him, likely not wanting news of their illegal sentencing to leave the region. And after giving this speech, Afzal knew that that group was only going to become more angry.
Mob mentality.
Based on Afzal's
This reminds me of the USA.
testimony, the existence of this video had caused the torture and deaths of 5 women, dead at the hands of a radical Jirga and the victim's own family.
I want to go to New York for Christmas time. I want to stand in front of the tree and wear a long coat like they do in Elf. Maybe that's what I'll do during my hiatus. Goodbye, guys. I'm going on a hiatus. I'm going to New York City. Da 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 da. Can you guys live in New York? Can you confirm that New York City is magical around Christmas time? Cause dude, New York City Christmas time looks like a freaking It doesn't accept the one billboard spot. Billboard spot? New York is smelly. Rockefeller Center is awesome around Christmas, though. Who's Rockefeller? Christmas time, yes. Otherwise, no. I wanna go to... Oh my gosh, isn't there figure skating in front of a big tree? You didn't play GTA 4? Nope. Ba 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 ba. Apparently, Quebecois has really good fall foliage, which is messed up because I don't want to go to Quebec. Now, at least no continent you're on. I'm in Canada. It's been 1 week since I liked it, no one wants to be in Quebec. Friggin' Tabernacle, bud. But apparently they got some good fall foliage. Hee. Does Canada have any magical place during a season/holiday? Oh no. I'm gonna expose myself for not being well-traveled. I don't know. The Rocky Mountains are magical always, and I think my house is magical always, but that's just my personal opinion. And you guys aren't allowed to come to my house, so... Smell like gravy, no? Smell a little bit stinky. You're young, you have time, we'll travel or cuemew soon. Alright, bet. This coupon is to raise funds to go to New York at Christmas time. Not allowed dancing around. Yeah, they're gonna kick you out at the gate. Because there's a gate, because I live in a castle. Meetup. You know, I might go to Animathon, so if anyone's around town when Animathon is happening, maybe we can meet up.
5 women.
No, I'm the only women. Oh, the story. Yeah. Here. Hello, showgirl. Thank you so much for coming. Here. I'm the only girl you need, though. Cat girl. I dared to go outside on a walk the other day and I have freaking mosquito bites.
Who were now coming after Afzal and his 2 brothers. As if this footage had just been kept on that man's phone, no one would have even known that this meeting had ever took place, and therefore none of this would be happening. It's an almost fantastical story, which begs the question, was any of it actually true?
4 women in Pakistan's Khorasan who were allegedly singing and dancing with men at a wedding party were killed after a tribal jirga committee of elders ordered their execution.
Afzal's story immediately made the front page news in Pakistan, but it wasn't without its controversy. At the end of the day, a story is all it was. He had no semblance of proof to back up his claims. In fact, Afzal himself never actually witnessed the crimes that he spoke of. He had simply been told about them by others who had, leaving the public perception to his story mixed. Within hours of his press conference, Maulana Javeed, the leader of the jirga that Afzal was trying to expose, came forward to publicly disavow the allegations, saying that Afzal had made up this entire story in an attempt to get political asylum to the United States for both him and his brothers, and that the women in this video were completely fine, living their lives as normal in Khorasan.
Prove
Both
it.
sides made their claims, but
Prove
both
it.
sides offered no evidence,
Yeah.
turning the story into a confusing case of he said, they said. Luckily though, the government of Pakistan had the perfect idea to
Hi Q, hi chat. I'm here from your TikToks. It's so funny. Thank you. Hee. Hee. I love you.
get to the bottom of it.
Source, I made it up.
And so they reached out to Maulana Javeed
What
and
do they
told him
mean?
that if the girls were alive like he claimed, then he must bring them to the courtroom in Abbottabad as proof. It was a great idea, in theory, but ultimately the Jirga hit back
Abbottabad.
on this, claiming that it would be dishonorable for these women to appear in court, as women in Kohistan aren't even meant to leave their homes under most circumstances, let alone travel that far and be shown in a public forum.
आपने उनमें से उनको फिर क्यों कल सुप्रीम कोर्ट में नहीं पेश कर रहे हैं?
वो तो हमारे क्योंकि रिवायात ये तारीख में कभी इस तरह के कोई वाक़या नहीं हुआ है कि कोहिस्तानी रिवायात में
Hee. A treasure train? What the hell is a treasure train? Hee. Hee. Sevelo. Ow!
May you have some Timbits. I don't know about your personal order, but I love the French vanilla cap. Or maybe peach drink is good too.
Yes, I love the bottled peach juice. It's so good. I know, dude. I just love getting the freaking Timbits. Not the plain Timbit, though. Birthday cake, chocolate, honey dip, and the raspberry or strawberry, the filled one. Sevelo, thank you so much for indoctrinating Jacob Maiden Morgan. Thank you so much. Mwah. Mwah. And thank you for the Biddy's Legend of Wrath. I will use that to go buy Tim Hortons. Thank you so much. Mwah. Donate to the scam train. Why is it a scam train? 35% off 5+ gift subs. There's an I. Hey! I want to click that I for information. Information. Wow, chat. Hey, chat. 35% off 5+ gift subs. Guys, you should indoctrinate. You should give 100 gift subs. Hey.
लड़कियों को अदालत में कचहरियों में पेश करना ये तो वो मजबूरी है
ये बताइए वो खवातीन जिंदा है या मर गई?
वो तो हमारे इल्म में जिंदा है
Kohistan is one of the most socially conservative areas on the planet. It is a deeply patriarchal society, with women having severe restrictions on all aspects of their lives, especially when it comes to social engagement, making this the perfect out for the Jirga. And so the government came up with a different solution. If the women couldn't travel to the courtroom, then they would travel to them. And so they quickly got together a group of investigators and sent them up into the mountains to meet the girls there themselves, and hopefully confirm that they were in fact still alive. On June 6th, 2012, a helicopter carrying this newly formed investigative team landed in the village of Gadar, where the women resided. Though they quickly realized that something was wrong, the village was practically deserted, and when they asked one of the few remaining locals where
my gosh. You actually did it. Oh my gosh, you actually freaking did it. Holy crap, Lola. Mad Scorpion, thank you so much for indoctrinating 10 Cumers. Thank you so much, Mad Scorpion. Thank you, thank you. See, I'm not gonna forget about you just because I'm not gonna forget about you just because Cephalo to freaking Thank you so much for the 10 gifted subs, Mad Scorpion. Thank you so much. Hey. Hey. Cephalo! What is what? What? What the hell? Oh my gosh. Cephalo! Thank you so much, Cephalo! Holy crap, Lola. Wow. That's freaking crazy! Thank you so much, Cephalo, for indoctrinating 101 humors. Wow! Oh my gosh. You freaking mad lad. I was being silly. I was being silly. Thank you so much! Hey. Hey.
Plaza, let me have this for a few days.
What do you mean? Have what for a few days? Legend of Rap, thank you so much for the 1,000 biddies. Thank you so much! Here. Oh my gosh. What do we have now?
My crown.
You have it! You have it! You got the bitty crown! 100 submarine sandwiches. I don't know if I can finish all that. Thank you so much, Cephalo. So, let's see. Where are we at? I don't know where it is. Oh, shitballs! Hold on. Edmund Miller! Thank you so much for indoctrinating Nanigati. Thank you so much, Edmund Miller. You guys are doing the good today. I love you guys. Now I have to... I don't know where... What did I do? Hype chest! Thank you so much! Oh, scary. I got a creature. Yeah. Well, I guess it's time for me to take it off, huh? Oh we also got the other one. Yay! We got summer movie nights too. Hell yeah, baby. We can start those ASAP, I guess. Because it is summer. Now we're at... I forget how I changed it. Now the next one is, that one. Gee, I didn't even know there were goals. Yeah, there are! It's QCon time, baby! Welcome to QCon. We just got Thanks to Cephalo shirt and keep off all summer and summer movie nights! Yay! So, this time. I look so small without it. My big ass head is coming out. Oh, I didn't say necklace though, so I guess I'm allowed to leave the necklace on. Oh my fucking god. Where are my arms? Oh no. Oh my god. Oh my god. Where are my arms? Oh no. Where are my arms? Where are my arms? Oh my god. What the hell? Why don't I have arms? Where did my arms go? No! What the hell? What happened to my arms? This is so messed up. Dude, what the freak? What the freak? What the hell happened to my arms? You've got to be kidding me, dude. What the actual hell? That's so dumb. Where did my arms go? Oh wait, should I leave the chain on or should I take the chain off? Bow, 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 bow. It's my emotional support chain. When I don't have arms, at least I have chain. Yeah. I need the chain. Without my chain, I am nothing. Well, I'm really darn cute though, aren't I? Yeah. You gotta accessorize. You can go to the beach and have on a bunch of cunty accessories. And my necklace is my cunty accessory. Dude, without my cape and my shirt, my bad posture is even more exposed. Look at my friggin' haunch. I gotta stand up straight. Bro, I don't have a single curve on me. Wow. Yeah. The chain stays on. Honey, the chain stays on during sex. Yeah. The heavy nya chain is weighing you down. That could be a possibility. Holy crap, dude. I don't have like, wow. No, look, I do have curves. Wow. Look, Chad, I have curves. I just have to go low enough that my belly's showing at all times. So, I guess this is my state for the rest of summer, huh? But come September, it's going back on because then it's gonna get too chilly. Cat is an adult, she's just a freaking goblina. I am a grown-up. Perhaps the chain is heavier than the whole body. How much do I weigh? How many apples? 3 apples tall. Get out of apples. I'm sure I can find some more. 7 apples. 2 apple big. Wow. Yeah, I'm small. 1 bushel. Yo. Bush out summer. Where are the bushes at? Who got their bush out? A bushel is 42 pounds. Is a bushel... How do you know that? 10 apples equals 3 cats. Don't ask me to do division. Don't even joke, lad. No loading in this chat, bucko. Bushel. Canadian spotted. Ow! I attacked myself. I'm my own worst enemy. What cute summertime activities do you guys want to do together? We gotta go to the beach, and we gotta go to the pool, and I have to drive a car. I don't want to. I'm too cute to drive. However, if I don't drive, I can't run anybody over. I go to the horse races. Go to the horse race. And where? Hey! Oh, shippos. Oh no. It's on the tip of my tongue. Thagomizer. Pacifier. Anticifier. Those funny horse race hats. Persifier. Oh! Freed. Precipitation. Focus. Fault. I give up. I don't have it. Someone else figured it out for me. Dive into the pool and do a flip midair. Get the F part. F! It says an F! Freaky. Fuck. Or teaser. You almost said it. Finders, keepers. Focus. Fascinator! No! Come on! I was so freaking close. You gotta be kidding me. I was so freaking close. As soon as you said Fascinator, I was like, oh, duh. Fascinator. And now it's Q-Log time. Maybe I'll go get some freaking watermelon. Because it's hot and I'm sweating. But it smells so good. The Derby Day ladies do look quite fascinating. Where do you even get a fascinator from? Here. Oh, okay. You guys want a fish? I'll go get the fish. Hey. Holy shitballs, dude. Look at my... Oh my god, wow. Look at my freaking posture! Wow. Taking off the cape and the shirt really brings out the horrible posture in my spine. That was me just looking on my computer to find fish. Wow. This is what you're gonna be seeing all damn summer, so enjoy. So dumb. Oh my god, look at that. Wow. Hey! That's it. You don't get to see what you got. The gaming posture. I am shrimping. Wow. Your spine probably looks like the spinal staircase from Ultra Kill. Hey, I have no idea what that is. Ooh. I need to find video games to buy in the summer sale. Because they're nice and cheap. It was between Red Dead Redemption 2 and God of War Ragnarok, but I don't imagine that those games will get any cheaper than they are right now, so I should probably buy them right now. Summer sale kind of sucked. Really? Why? Fish isn't dead, I paused it because you guys are not patient. RDR2 is worth it, I already had it. You guys need to make a list of games I should buy in the summer sale. It ends tomorrow. You have different tops by any chance? I mean, I'm sure all of you want to be my top. That was a yaoi joke. Okay, goodbye. Q-Log time. I will be back in 3 minutes. I'm gonna go do stuff. I look so dumb! Oh my god! I look so stupid without my load-bearing cape. Wow. Oji-san to 10 MX. Yes! Creepy Oji-san, you're obsessed with doing that stuff when I'm in the bathroom. And guess what? That doesn't even count for... It's not a dollar, a US dollar, so... Oh. Listen, guys, I'm gonna tell you something personal. Never mind. I can't say that on Twitch. Oh, you can donate in any other currency. It just has to be greater than $1 US. And see it on YouTube. Fair enough. Yeah. Is there a camera above your head? No, it's kind of like... looking right at me. Yeah, it's kind of looking right at me. If it was above my head, I'd be doing that. Well, I guess I wouldn't be doing that. You'd just be like looking down all the time. Hey. I didn't have enough time to go cut open a watermelon, but...
Let's make it 5, to be yellow you.
You know what? Fair enough. Yellow. We love yellow. It's the color of cheese, and my hair, and my chain. Thank you for that super chat, Creepy Ochi-san. So that's 5 USD. I don't know how perfect the conversion is. I'll take your word for it. Yes, and pee. Is it the color of my pee? Who knows? How hydrated am I? We'll have to find out. Thank you for the super, Creepy Ochi-san. No. Guys, how many seconds is in 5 minutes? Yeah, crumbs. Is there subtitles? What's your language? K-pop? Is it Korean? 안녕하세요. Okay, where is it? Add point 5. Subathon. Add time 300. Yeah! Around 6-7. 6-7. Here. You can't fool me. Yeah. 300. 5 minutes is 300 seconds. Mid milk. Mmm. Dirty soda. Mufti K-pop. What is your language? Tell me now. Is it not Korean? What is it? Where are you? Who are you? Where are you from? Shit's awful. You gotta go to a dirty soda place. For some reason, when you do it yourself, it never works out. You gotta have their mysterious ways of doing it. I gotta go like this so it doesn't look like I'm naked. Hey, wow. Yeah, I'm gonna have to beat up pretty high. My big ass hair is in the way though. I guess if I do it like this, you don't know how low that goes. I just can't do it like that. Because now it looks like I'm naked. Root beer makes the milk taste like a root beer float. Oh, stop! You guys are making me want to go to Crumble. We don't need to see the video. I'll write back. Look how freaking long my legs are. Wow. Legs, what's on the menu? Legs, what's on the menu? Legs. Here. Okay, gang, come on. Let's go back to the video. Hey, because someone distracted us. Thank you so much, Severo. Hey.
Everyone was. They were told that most villagers had left the area due to the seasonal weather, including the women they were looking for, who lived spread out and even higher into the mountains.
Oh, convenient.
And to find just 2 of them would require a grueling 4-hour hike. It was certainly suspicious to some degree, but nevertheless, the team proceeded on that long walk, until they happened upon the first woman. Amina. The woman before them appeared to have the same facial features, and was even wearing the same exact outfit that Amina wore in the video. On top of this, the other locals they spoke with would go on to confirm that she was the Amina they were looking for. Though proving this for certain was impossible, as the only information the investigators had to go off of was her name and screenshots from this recording, and so all they could do was document their findings and go on to meet the next girl. Shaheen. Shaheen's story is different from the others, as she was never actually shown in the footage. Rather, she was Amina's sister, whom Afso claimed helped facilitate the illegal gathering that fateful night, and was therefore killed alongside the others for her involvement, with the most disturbing part being the fact that she was just 12 years old. But that was Afso's story, and here, standing before the investigators, was a girl who appeared to be the same age, claiming to be Shaheen, as did her parents and all the other villagers they spoke with. Though given that her face never even appeared in the video, it was also impossible to verify this. After meeting Shaheen, the group was informed that the remaining women lived even further away, and reaching them before sundown wouldn't be possible, forcing the team to return to Abbottabad, having only met 2 of the girls. But so far, their findings were extremely promising. Less than 2 weeks later, on June 16th, the team would once again visit Kohistan, this time armed with cameras to document their findings. There, they would meet 2 more of the women, Serene Jan and Begum Jan. Much like the first 2 women, Serene Jan seemed to be a match, with her family and neighbors attesting to her identity, though it was noted that she was incredibly nervous and refused to speak unless her parents allowed her to, which was true also for Begum Jan, whose meeting was actually captured on camera. It was evident how nervous she was. She could hardly even force a smile, and didn't speak a single word. But despite this, everyone reassured the investigators that this was Begum Jan, and given how isolated the lives of Kohistani women are, perhaps her nerves were understandable. This left only the 5th alleged victim, Baziga. though she was nowhere to be seen that day, as she had supposedly fallen ill and was unable to come down from her home, which was even more remote than the team had gone thus far. But for the investigators, they had already all but confirmed that 4 of the women who Afzal claimed to have been murdered were still very much alive, with there being no evidence whatsoever that any executions had taken place, leaving the team with no real reason to believe any of his story. And so days after their second trip to Kohistan, the news would break.
Human rights activist Farzana Bari, who is accompanying the team sent to bring the Kohistani girls to the Supreme Court, says there is evidence that all the girls are alive.
The Kohistan video case was closed. It was a swift end to such an alarming story, as after just a few weeks, in the eyes of the public and the government, the stories told about this video were deemed to be lies, and Afzal was the liar. But not everyone was so quick to agree with this conclusion.
Something's fishy.
There were obvious flaws in this fact-finding mission, the most glaring of which being that all the investigators had to go off of were blurry screenshots and some names. In fact, Dr. Farzana Bari, one of the investigators sent to Kohistan who actually met with these women, would later go on to publicly state that she was unsatisfied with their findings. As though the women they met looked similar to those in the video, they weren't able to conclusively prove that they were who they claimed to be, just given the resources available to them.
Maybe
but if these weren't the women in question, then who were they? Why were they pretending to be them? And why was the entire village lying about it? Well, this spread the conspiracy theory that the women the investigators met with were merely actors, coerced into pretending to be these women as part of a cover-up to disprove Afzal's story. A cover-up that had to be so massive that the entire village was in on it. It seems unlikely, but there was a vocal minority in Pakistan that truly believed this, including Afzal himself, as in his mind he was certain that those women had been killed, and that he and his brothers were next. And so, with a small group of supporters by his side, Afzal vowed to continue his push for justice, and at the start of 2013, he would go to the courtroom in Abbottabad and file a motion to have the Kohistan video case reopened, a decision that had sudden and direct consequences. Days after Afzal's court filing, he received a devastating phone call that his brothers had been gunned down and murdered in cold blood, but not the ones you might expect. Afzal was one of 6 siblings, and at this point, 2 of his brothers were still in hiding, living their lives in a secret location. But the other 3, Sherwali, Shah Faisal, and Rafuddin, were living their lives as usual, believing that they were safe as they had no involvement in this fight whatsoever, though they were sadly mistaken. And on January 4th, 2013, while walking to their local mosque in Kohistan, all 3 were ambushed by a group of gunmen and met with a barrage of gunfire. Seconds later, all 3 were dead. The murders were shocking, and made even more so when the culprits were revealed as members of the slain woman's family, as well as the jirga that had called for their execution. And their motive was simple. This was revenge against Afzal for sharing his story, and for filing that application just days prior. And as if the group's message wasn't clear enough, they would then surround Afzal's home and fire over 1,000 bullets into the structure. Luckily, Afzal had already moved to a secret location out of fear of this very moment, but the incident left him forever shaken and forever devastated. As in trying to save 2 of his brothers, his fight had now cost him.
This is supposed to be some remote village? Yeah, this looks like they're acting like the mafia!
3. But there was at least one minuscule silver lining, with that being that the jirga and the woman's family had now proven themselves to be murderous. But this didn't necessarily prove that they were actually the ones who killed these women. That was still just a theory, and a far-out theory at that. I mean, in the eyes of the Pakistan government, these women couldn't have been killed, as their investigators had literally met face-to-face with 4 of them. This was the main challenge that Reuters journalist Catherine Harold ran into after picking up the case. She had been reporting on Pakistani honor killings around the time of Afzal's press conference, and found his story to be believable based on her research into treatment of women in that region. But for his story to be true, then she knew that meant that the women presented to the investigative team couldn't have been who they claimed to be. And so she took an image of Begum John, the woman who looked particularly nervous during the investigation, and Begum's official government ID photo, and sent them both off to Digital Barriers, a company specializing in facial recognition technology, and asked them to compare the images and determine if these 2 women were actually the same person. The comparison came back at just 17%, or in other words, they weren't a match. This means that by all likelihood, This woman, the woman shown to the government as proof that Begum John was alive, and who the entire village identified.
3 months in the bathroom, huh?
How much time did that add? Did anyone see how much time that added? How much points that added? For some reason, it looked like it said 57 minutes. Yeah, but anyways, what are you talking about? 3 months in the bathroom, huh? Snark Mark, thank you so much for queuing. Mwah. Your coming hiatus. Yes! I'm finally getting rid of Jeremy, my tapeworm. So dumb.
as Begum John was in fact an imposter.
Mm.
It's a revelation that shifted the entire case. Suddenly, this once far-off conspiracy theory was proven to be at least partially true. And if someone had been impersonating Begum John, then it was more than possible that the same had been done with all the other women. And just like that, the Khoistan video conspiracy was in full effect. The government of Pakistan, however, wasn't convinced by the findings. In their minds, they had already investigated these claims, and they had little interest in reopening the case. But Afzal persisted, and he continued doing anything he could to get this case a wider audience, and force the government to reinvestigate. He did interviews on TV, filed motions in court, and even ran for office in Khoistan. But no matter how hard he tried, hardly any progress was made, until eventually years began to pass. The agony of waiting was hell for Afzal. Despite some of the women's family members being thrown in prison for the murder of his brothers, many were still walking free, and as were all the members of that original jirga, meaning that every day represented new risks to Afzal's life, new risks to his brothers' lives, and new risks to the lives of the women in Khoistan. Since the alleged executions of those 5 women, Afzal and his supporters had discovered evidence of over 50 other honor killings that had taken place in that small village over the course of just 2 years. A shockingly high number of people considering how few people actually lived in that village, with these honor killings being described as common as the common cold. Every household was being affected by them.
Wow.
But no one dared speak about it. They were all too afraid. The jirga held all the power, and speaking out against them would be breaching the tradition that they hold so dearly. And as a result, despite all the other killings, Afzal was still really the only one from the region that had been talking with the press. And this was finally about to pay off. In 2016, Afzal was featured on a Vice documentary that highlighted his story as well as the treatment of women in Khoistan at the hands of this bloodthirsty jirga.
मैंने वो अपने भाइयों की इंतकाम लेने के लिए आज तक मैंने हर किस्म की कोशिश करने की पोजीशन में नहीं हूँ, लेकिन मैं कहता हूँ कि उन लोगों को कुछ न कुछ सज़ा मिल जाए, अंदर नस्लों को इस तरह की कोई तकलीफ न पहुँचे.
It was an extremely compelling video.
I remember when Vice went to North Korea,
showing us just how much Afzal's life had been derailed by the whole situation, as he was forced to live alone in hiding, separate from his family, including his children, wife, and 2 surviving brothers, who themselves were also living in hiding, in conditions that they described as being miserable. The story was about as harrowing as it gets, and as soon as the video released, hundreds of thousands of people would watch it, thrusting the Khoistan video case into a worldwide spotlight. And with so many eyes now on the case, and with so many people now calling for the Pakistan government to reinvestigate, they would finally relent. That same year, in November of 2016, the government called on that jirga once more to bring these women to Abbottabad and show them in their courtroom so they could personally verify that they were still alive. And this time, they outright demanded it. Failure to comply would essentially be seen as an admission to these murders. There was no getting around it this time, and so that month, a group of 5 women and their families were all brought down from Khoistan, and one by one led into the courtroom, with the hope of bringing this case to an end, once and for all.
I hear creepy sounds outside. There's monsters. Those eyebrows are like the birth of man, just touching tips. Empreg.
To protect the women's honor, no photos or videos were allowed in the courtroom, meaning all we know about what happened inside comes from officials' descriptions afterwards. The first thing noted was the conduct of these women. The girls produced were observed to be extremely nervous and frightened. They were hardly able to respond to queries. They had incompatible reflexes and face expressions. In response to most of the queries, it was commonly observed that they were supplied with words from elders, especially about their ages and husbands. The girls were terrified, too terrified to speak for themselves, and instead all their answers were fed to them by accompanying elders. But the strangeness of their mannerisms pales in comparison to the strangeness of their appearances, with the most bizarre being Amina. By appearance, she was about 15 years old. Reportedly, the video was shot back in the year 2010, and it surfaced on the internet in 2012. If we subtract 6 years from Amina's age, her age at the time of the video shooting would be between 8 years or 9 years, whereas the women visible in the video looked to be aged between 20 years or 22 years, back in the year 2010. The girl that they brought to court claiming to be Amina was just a child, and based on her appearance, she would have been as young as 8 years old in the video.
Whoa.
Which clearly isn't the case. I mean, these are fully grown women. And the same was true for Serene John. By appearance, she was not more than 16 years or 17 years of age, meaning she would have been aged 9 years or 10 years in 2010. Along with this, neither she nor her father was able to tell her birthday or her age. These girls were clearly
Justice for our lost witch sisters. Granny, I'm too late.
Your granny was a witch? I'm jealous. Wow. I want a granny witch. And I want to become a witch. Just like in Halloween Town. Gee. Hello, Charlie Cockatiel.
not the women from the video. They were just acting. And while these seemed to be feeble attempts, there were other aspects that made it obvious just how desperate this Jirga was to try and pass these girls off as real, with the most upsetting coming from the girl who claimed to be Amina. Now, Amina actually had her fingerprints on file with the Pakistani government already, and so naturally they went to collect this girl's fingerprints in order to compare them. But when they attempted to do so, they came back blank, which is when the officials noticed that the tips of her fingers had been burnt off. And it wasn't just her thumbs. Every single finger had the tips of them scorched off. On the spot, all 5 girls brought into that courtroom were determined to be imposters, victims themselves who were forced into pretending that they were the women seen in this footage. And considering the Jirga's desperation and the lengths they went through to now twice try and pass off different women as those from the video, it was clear that something awful had happened to the actual women, something that they didn't want to ever get out. And with that, almost universally, the world fell into agreement that Afzal had been telling the truth all along. But any celebration from Afzal would have been short-lived. Months later, a fire erupted in a small home in Gadar, the village where all of the women once resided. And inside that home, 2 women and 3 children were trapped and would tragically burn to death. It was an awful tragedy, but according to the local Jirga, it wasn't an accident, as in its aftermath, they alleged that Afzal was the one responsible, claiming that he had started the fire in retaliation.
Okay, so the Jirgals started the fire themselves and blamed this guy. Wow. Wow. And I like how in this retaliation killing, they couldn't even kill adult men. Why would this guy target women and children? He has no issue with the women and children. What the hell? Yeah, fuck the gerbil! Fuck the gerbil!
This claim was complete hearsay, and there was no evidence whatsoever linking Afzal to the blaze. In fact, he wasn't living anywhere near the area at the time. But nevertheless, Afzal would be arrested for the murders of 5 people.
Oh, come on.
It's a gut-wrenching development, and follows the trend of horrible misfortunes that Afzal suffered in trying to blow the whistle on this crime. But as his sentence commenced, the Kohistan video case continued making its way through the legal system, until July of 2018, when the news came in. It was officially determined that Serene Jan, Begum Jan, and Baziga had all in fact been tortured and murdered by their families on order from the Jirga, with the confirmation coming as a result of confessions made from their own family members. And the entire time, the village had been working together to conceal the truth in what was described as a massive coordinated conspiracy to cover up their crimes. Now bizarrely, this revelation stated that the other two girls were actually still alive, as they weren't mentioned in any of the confessions. However, given what unfolded in court, this is universally doubted to this day, as most are in agreement that every woman shown in this video was in fact murdered 2 years after its recording, just as Afzal had claimed. It's unlike any story I can remember hearing. One video, one wholesome, lighthearted video for that matter, is responsible for 8 murders, as not only were these 5 women killed because of it, but Afzal's 3 brothers were killed as a result of him sharing it with the world, making it perhaps the deadliest video I've ever come across. But as suggested earlier, this footage isn't considered responsible for the deaths of 8 people, it's considered responsible for the deaths of 9. The confessions in 2018 didn't lead to any immediate convictions, but it was at least proof in the eyes of the public that these murders took place, and this was followed by Afzal finally being released from prison in early 2019, a full year and a half after he was unjustly arrested. But despite being free, Afzal was hardly out of the woods. The case wasn't officially over yet, and he knew that the family and the members of the Jirga were still out there. In fact, around the same time, the family members who were initially convicted of killing Afzal's brothers were mysteriously released, for reasons that weren't specified, and they were likely now more angry than ever. And so after being released from prison, Afzal went to a local police station to request police protection, something that the court had already granted him. But in response, the officers said no. And when he tried pressing the matter, Afzal claims that the officers became so enraged that they dragged him inside a small room and beat him. Between Afzal being arrested and now this, it almost felt as though the government and the police were now against him, which could be due to the fact that Afzal had been very public with how inadequate and downright abusive the police had been towards him. And with nowhere left to turn, Afzal would post a video to his social media declaring that his life was in danger.
मैं 2012 से यही पुलिस की जिद में जलील हो रहा हूँ। एक जवान था, उसने ऐसी हालत मेरी की है कि और बहुत सबसे उठ के मुझे मारा है उसने। जिसके साथ करे मेरे खिलाफ करे किसी और के खिलाफ करे, मैं इसने नाइंसाफी के खिलाफ चाहे।
Sinarkumar, thank you for indoctrinating with humor. Yeah, Legend of Rat, thank you for indoctrinating with humor. Double, double. Thank you guys. I would have been out of the country way before this. Is leaving the country that difficult? My question exactly, that's what I'm wondering. Please watch DPRK video next. What is that?
Days later, on March 6, 2019, Afzal arrived in Abbottabad to testify in the Kohistan trial, though he never made it into the courtroom. As he sat in the back of an unmarked truck waiting to enter, suddenly the vehicle was struck by multiple bullets. Paramedics would open the door minutes later, only to find Afzal laying in a pool of blood. He would never make it to the hospital.
In Pakistan, the man who led a campaign to expose one of the country's most notorious so-called honor killings has been shot dead in the city of Abbottabad.
Afzal's death was devastating to so many, not only throughout Pakistan, but throughout the entire world. His relentless pursuit of justice, and his willingness to sacrifice his own life in order to expose these crimes, was something that was championed by so many throughout the world. And he had come so close to seeing justice served, as only a few months later, 3 men were arrested and sentenced to life in prison for the Kohistan murders, each being members of the girls' families. Along with one other, a man named Masoom Khan, a member of the Jirga who was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Afzal. But even with this, people were angry. They were angry with the government for not taking Afzal's word more seriously. They were angry with the police who failed to protect Afzal and seemed to be actively working against him. And they were also angry at a rather unexpected source. The Vice documentary made back in 2016 was undoubtedly part of what put this case back on the map and back in the court system, but right from its release it garnered criticism for something that the showrunners had seemingly overlooked, with one commenter pointing it out. Wait, hold on a minute. Isn't it dangerous to expose his whereabouts like this? In the footage used, the crew seemingly showed the outside of the hideout where Afzal had been living, as well as where his family had been hiding, and in response to Afzal's death, many were quick to blame the documentary. You people had literally shot his location.
He wasn't killed at his home, though. He was killed in front of, or was he? I don't remember.
And his family's location. Damn, you killed him. By disclosing his hideout, Afzal Kohestani was killed by his enemies. This is really shameful and against the ethics of journalism. Why would you show Afzal and his family's hiding place? And while it may seem a little extreme to blame a documentary made 3 years before his murder, it's given a bit more weight by the fact that Vice had actually re-uploaded the documentary to their Vice Asia channel at the end of 2018, where it went completely viral, gaining more viewership than even the original upload. Months later, Afzal would be killed, and to this day, many still believe that Vice played an unintentional role in it. But again, this is just public speculation, and at the end of the day, it was really on the police and the government of Pakistan to protect him, and they failed. It's a heartbreaking end to a heartbreaking story, and follows this trend of misfortune that Afzal dealt with throughout his life. And unfortunately, that trend continued even after his death. Devastatingly, the 3 men arrested for the murders of these women would be unexpectedly released from prison in 2023, only 4 short years after their initial arrest. A far cry from life in prison, like they were originally sentenced to. And the reason for their release was just as upsetting, as the government cited a lack of evidence. These 3 men literally confessed to the killings, and they even discussed how they disposed of the bodies afterwards. And yet there suddenly wasn't enough evidence to keep them in prison, despite them already being convicted, meaning that after all of the death in this video, the murders of Afzal's brothers, the murders of these 5 women, and the murder of Afzal himself, only 1 man is currently in prison.
Yay! Yay! Awesome! Yay! Awesome! Hooray! Yay! 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 Thank you for indoctrinating a Cuemew Legend of Wrath. Mwah. Hey. Oh. Oh no! My phone charger was unplugged. Good thing I noticed before it died. Got a cheer, that was sad. Yeah. Sometimes you just gotta cheer the pain away. That was a real bummer of a video. It sucks how corrupt it is over there. Yeah. You feel like there's corruption wherever you go now. I know how to make it better, though. Chilling scares! Awesome! We got 2 chilling scares, baby. 5 most disturbing moments in TV history. Ooh.
In the early hours of October 15th, 1980, a small staff at WCPO in Cincinnati was working through what should have been an ordinary night shift. But at around 2 a.m., news reporter Elaine Green and a channel photographer were heading out to their cars when a man carrying a semi-automatic rifle stepped out from the dark and ordered them back inside. He assured them no one was going to get hurt and he just wanted to say something he needed the cameras for. The man was 41-year-old James Hoskins, an out-of-work artist living in Cincinnati's Over-the-Rhine neighborhood, which is one of the poorest areas in the city. Along with the rifle, he also had 5 handguns and roughly 600 rounds of ammunition. By the time the rest of the staff realized what was happening, James already had the entire newsroom under his control. He gathered all 9 employees at gunpoint and told Elaine he wanted to go live on television to deliver a message. Elaine, however, convinced him to record the interview on tape instead, preventing the station from airing an unpredictable hostage situation live to viewers at home. What no one at WCPO knew yet was that the most tragic part of the night had already happened hours earlier. When the camera finally started recording, James began explaining why he had come there in the first place, while holding a gun in his hand the entire time.
Okay.
Well, I really didn't have anything together, but there's been so much violence.
He talked about the violence and poverty he witnessed every day from his apartment window in Over the Rhine.
There's not enough attention paid for the poor people in the Over the Rhine area, and there seems to be in the country a growing kind of thing to keep black and white at each other's throats, to keep the rich on top, so the poor people have no way to fight. The police have become the knights, the buffer between the rich and the poor. And the poor, I don't know if you've ever been in the Over the Rhine area to see the old people. They have nothing. I watch them. They have nothing. They sit in their bed all day long, and that's all they have to look forward to. Nothing's happening for them. Nobody cares. Nobody does anything for them.
He then turned that frustration.
We call that bed rotting now. That's what I do.
Toward the media and the city itself, accusing news stations of only entering these neighborhoods after someone had been killed, while city officials cleared low-income housing so visitors coming for conventions wouldn't have to see the poverty there.
It seems like the things you should be covering, you don't cover. You never come into the area unless somebody gets wasted. They're displacing people. They tear the buildings down so that when the people come into the convention centers, they don't have to look at the poor people.
But even as James laid all of this out, he kept speaking like a man who knew exactly how the night was going to end.
Can you see this world from your window?
I can see the world from my bay windows, up and down the street.
Possibly a story could be done from your window of the world
I
you
won't
see.
be there in my windows after this, I'm sure. Maybe you can do it from my windows, but I won't be there.
This only added to the seriousness of the interview. But for a man forcing people to listen at gunpoint and claiming that he was about to no longer be here, most of James's points didn't sound completely detached from reality. He was rambling and at times struggled to get his thoughts together, but his anger kept circling back to real problems and a system he believed had abandoned the people he was supposed to protect. This would go on for nearly 10 minutes. As the tape started running out, Elaine asked if there was any final point he wanted to make. And that's when James finally said what he actually wanted next.
Jim, we have probably another minute or so on this tape. Is there any other point you wanted to make?
I can't think of any point I want to make, except give me a place where the police can come and get me and we're going to shoot it out. And you people can leave.
Here?
Well, I don't see any other place for me to shoot it out. They've got their magnums. They want to hurt the poor people in the street. I've got my magnums. I'm ready. I'm loaded.
Hearing that, the people in the room tried to reason him out of his plan, pointing out that what he had just said sounded too idealistic to end in a shootout. But James's response to it immediately changed the context of the entire interview.
Idealistic things you just said.
You seem such a nice gentleman.
I blew my girlfriend away tonight. It's over for me.
Before coming to the station that night, James had shot his girlfriend, 30-year-old Melanie Finley. She was later found.
I hope nothing scary happens. You will not believe this. Close your eyes.
Found inside their shared apartment on 12th Street.
Oh.
This confession made his calmness even more disturbing, as it became clear that James wasn't using the cameras to fight a corrupt system. He was using them to explain something he believed could no longer be undone. And even after Elaine and others kept pleading that he could still get help, James insisted he was already past saving, blaming drugs, paranoia, and a plan he said had started long before that night.
We don't want to see
I have
you
no
hurt.
choice. I have murdered my girlfriend. I have been taking this weird drug. I am out of my mind.
But you
man.
can get help.
I can't. We planned. We did all these things. This whole thing was planned back in San Francisco. It was all started out. over the period of time, I've become paranoid. I tell you, the drugs or the angel dust, people turn me on to angel dust. They did numbers on me in San Francisco that I ran from one end of the place to the other.
He was certain that he couldn't come back from what he had committed already.
I know that I'm slipping away.
Can't we help you before you slip any? You don't want to slip completely away.
I'm gone. All they'll do. There is no help for me. Look, I murdered my girlfriend. God damn, man, I killed her.
I don't know about you guys, but if I was one of those news people, I'd be like, oh shit, that sucks. Okay, bye. Because he said that they could leave, so I'd be out of there.
After roughly 90 minutes, James let all 9 hostages leave unharmed and barricaded himself alone in the newsroom as police and SWAT surrounded the building. Negotiators spoke with him by phone through the morning, trying to talk him down. But at 9:15 a.m., while speaking to an officer on the phone, James said, "Well, it's time. I'm going to do it now." Police waited another 4 hours before entering the building, fearing it might be a trap. When they finally went inside at 1:45 p.m., they found James on the newsroom floor with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And when investigators searched his apartment, they realized the interview at WCPO may have... And when investigators searched...
Look at this guy. He's so swaggy. Whoa. Damn. Whoa. Damn. Hold on, that guy. Whoa.
They realized the interview at WCPO may have only been one part of a much darker plan. They found more weapons,
Hello?
Is there a Canadian setting?
A Canadian setting for what? Can you do chain though? It's my chain. Nobody can have it except for me.
Materials and detailed files on prominent city figures filed under labels like political creeps, business creeps, and police tactics. Elaine Green later won a Peabody Award for her courage in the interview. Much of what James said that night still sounds like fair criticism even today, but the way in which he forced the world to hear it is what made the footage so disturbing. On Halloween night 1990, roughly 150 people gathered at Blackbeard's Family Fun Center in Fresno, California to watch a local magician attempt something no stuntman had ever survived.
Hello?
32-year-old Joseph
What a freaking whiplash, one place to another.
Boris, or Amazing Joe, was a self-taught magician from Fresno who had spent years trying to surpass Harry Houdini and become the greatest escape artist ever. And on this night, the anniversary of Houdini's death, he wanted to prove it. His plan was to be handcuffed, wrapped in chains, locked inside a transparent plastic coffin, and be buried alive in a 7-foot grave, all recorded for TV. If everything went according to plan, he would escape in less than a minute. But the problem was that even Houdini himself had nearly died attempting a version of this stunt in 1915, when the pressure of dirt got so overwhelming that he lost consciousness and had to be pulled out by his assistants before he died of suffocation. Joe, however, had already survived a simpler version of the stunt a year before in Oregon, where he escaped from a wooden coffin buried under dirt. That success gave him the confidence to go bigger. So, for the Fresno performance, Joe added something...
Canadian fantasy.
Canadian fantasy, tabernacle.
Even Houdini never used. Wet
Jesus.
concrete. But during the days leading up to the stunt, one small detail had already hinted that Joe may have been taking too big of a risk. Still, when Joe arrived on location in a white tuxedo and white shoes, he gave the crowd no reason to think the stunt was in doubt. In the crowd were members of his family, including his 13 and 10-year-old sons, which made it seem like Joe had everything under control. So, in front of everyone, he let his assistants handcuff him and wrap chains around him before sealing him inside the transparent plastic coffin. Once the lid was locked, the coffin was lowered into the 7-foot grave, and his assistants began shoveling dirt into the hole until there was about 3 feet worth. Then, a cement truck pulled in and poured about 3 feet of wet concrete on top. The plan was for Joe to free himself before the wet cement fully dried up and trapped his escape route. But as soon as the hole was filled to the edge, the dirt and concrete both suddenly dropped about 2 feet, as witnesses heard the coffin shatter somewhere beneath all that weight.
It was a cold night anyway, and when it sunk, I just knew this is trouble. We're in trouble. And it's not fun anymore.
The crowd that had been waiting for Joe to climb...
What the fuck are you expecting? Oh. Cat could probably pull off this stunt. We believe Cat. This is child's play for me. But for you guys, no. Humans should not try this.
I'm out. Now watch the crew rush back in and start digging through the same dirt and
Wow.
concrete they had just buried him under. Unfortunately,
No
by the time
shovels?
rescuers pulled him from the ground, he had already passed away. Pathologists later found concrete
Wow.
under his fingernails, suggesting that even after the coffin gave way, Joe may have still been trying to dig himself out. But the most disturbing part is that this collapse wasn't some freak accident no one could have seen coming. Joe's entire plan depended on him escaping the coffin in under a minute, because once the concrete covered him, there was almost no room for delay. But during practice, the same escape had taken 5 minutes. On top of that,
Are
the
you
plastic coffin had
shitting
already
me?
cracked during one of the earlier practice runs.
What the
And
hell?
instead of replacing
What a bunch of stupid idiots. Wow. He deserved to die.
it, Joe patched it up himself using glue from a hardware store.
Holy
Even Joe's
shit
own assistant
balls.
later said that he never calculated the combined weight of the dirt and wet concrete together, and that his only test of the coffin's strength was jumping on it.
Yeah, he deserved that. The fact that the coffin corners weren't attached to a crane or something to lift up in an emergency was so stupid. Well, as you can see, this entire thing has been a parade of stupidity.
In the end, Joe Boris died on the same
Holy.
night as the magician he had spent his whole career trying to surpass.
Oh, wow. That's magical. That's beautiful. That's romantical. Can you insult me as well? I can call you a baka. Baka.
At around 9:30 p.m. on May 28, 1982, viewers in Phoenix, Arizona had their regular programming interrupted by an unscheduled broadcast on
Cool
KOL.
news.
Us to relay to you. Mr. Gwynn, is it all right for our guest to leave the studio now? All right, you may leave now.
On the screen was veteran news director Bill Close, sitting next to a man he addressed as only Mr. Gwynn and reading aloud from a handwritten script.
This is the script that Mr. Gwynn gave me.
Why is
And I'm
he holding
going
a
to read it verbatim,
telephone?
And anytime you wish to interrupt me,
The words jumped between country music singers, religious prophecies, civil war, and a coming World War III. To the viewers watching at home, the broadcast looked strange enough on its own. But what they couldn't see was a .38 caliber rifle aimed directly at Bill's stomach beneath the desk. The man sitting beside him was 28-year-old Joseph.
What does that do? I'm confused. What just happened? Hey!
Billy Gwynn, and roughly 4.5 hours earlier, he had forced his way into the KOOL building carrying that revolver and a small portable television monitor. The first person he came across was production assistant Nancy Petranka, whom he confronted before pushing past her
What's wrong with a .38 caliber?
and forcing his way deeper into the station, where another employee named Louis Villa stepped in his way and tried to stop him. But Joseph pistol whipped him across the head, locked him into a chokehold, and dragged him straight onto the set where Bill and 2 other station employees were preparing to go live for the evening news. With 4 employees now under his control, Joseph fired a single shot into the ceiling to prove his weapon was real. But when Bill asked what he wanted, Joseph's answer only raised more questions.
In visions and dreams, how God showed me what was going to happen in the future. Those cities are going to be built and there's going to be destroyed. There's going to be civil war in America. America's going to be divided up.
By then, the people inside the station had already realized they were dealing with someone whose grip on reality was slipping, badly. Over the next several hours, Bill worked the phone with police negotiators, carefully relaying Joseph's demand to appear on television and have his statement read live on air. And every time he spoke to police, he had to walk back over to Joseph and calm him down before he started believing he was being stalled or ignored. But as the hours dragged on, Joseph became increasingly convinced that the station had no intention of broadcasting his message. And the longer he waited, the more desperate he became. So, with Joseph growing more unstable and a loaded revolver still pressed against Louis, police finally agreed to let him go live on air with Bill at around 9:30 p.m.
my name is Joe Gwynn. I am a watchman read the 33rd chapter of Ezekiel. This is about the story of the 10 prophets.
For the next 21 minutes, Bill read Joseph's 11-page, almost incoherent statement live to the people of Phoenix.
Whoa.
The 10 prophets are Johnny Cash, Ronnie Millsap, Eddie Rabbitt, Barbara Mondrell, Joe Gwynn, the traitor. The Arizona Republic and Phoenix Gazette can verify this story. 16 years ago in September, about the 25th of 1966, all of these people's names above meet at the same time, including me. I was almost 13 years old. We all meet, and we're together at the same hour. Mysteriously, I was the only one who knew what it was about. The others didn't. I did.
The more Bill read,
Wow.
the harder the message became to follow, drifting
Looney
from biblical
Tunes.
prophecy into Islamophobic rambling.
Then the angel shows me a book about me and the life I was supposed to live. The angel told me the story about the 10 prophets. Then he told me I was a watchman, Ezekiel chapter 33. The angel told me I would meet all these people, the 10 prophets, the country singers. This is these people's part they have in this. Back to the beginning. Islam used sociology on our people. Islam is using this sociology on children. They used it on my generation to start the hippie movement and drugs, and on today's generation to turn them into punks and punk rockers by hypnotism.
As the statement went on, Joseph's prophecies got even more
no.
bizarre, describing an American Civil War and a Third World War that he believed were coming in the years ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Islam is going to blow these cities up with atomic bombs. These 5 cities are Cyclops in Pennsylvania, Ominix in Arkansas, Yosemite in Nebraska, Isolox or Itchabad in Idaho, and Snix in New Mexico. All these cities.
Chad, are those real places? All those names sound like a bunch of insane hoogly-hoggly rambling, but shit, as far as I know, they could be real names. Wow. Wow. Yeah, they're gonna bomb Stinks, Idaho, instead of freaking Los Angeles. He's mispronouncing Hitchabod and Yosemite or Norfolk. There's a city in Austria called the fucking city. Ooh.
Will be isolated. After this happens, there will be civil war in America. The United States will be divided up into 4 countries. World War III will start in the fall of 1988. Edward Kennedy will lead the United States in World War III. He will be the next president and be elected 2 terms. The angel said we could unite and fight these Muslims there, Islam and their allies.
But the clearest sign of how far gone Joseph was came from the small monitor he had brought with him. Throughout the broadcast, he kept checking it to make sure the station was actually airing his message, as if the only thing Joseph trusted in that room was the version of reality playing out in his own mind. When Bill finished reading the final page, Joseph calmly handed Bill the revolver and surrendered without resistance.
I got a sweaty palm. I want to shake hands with you.
You really do, huh?
You bet. I told you I was playing this fair. Did you think you didn't trust me all this time? Oh, hell, it's all right. Leave him alone. It's okay. Put down the guns. I have the gun. Back off with the guns.
By that point, every person in that studio had spent almost 5 hours trapped inside a situation that could have changed any moment Joseph stopped believing Bill was on his side. Joseph was later charged with 4 counts of armed kidnapping, 3 counts of aggravated assault, and first-degree burglary. But after pleading no contest,
Holy shit, look, wow! Look at those eyeballs! He's far gone, wow! Met a guy who was completely off his knockers once. He had a journal with incomprehensible rambles. The word God and Bible's passages were written all over it. That is so scary. I hope I never go insane. Burglary, did he also steal something? Yeah, he stole my time.
declared legally insane and committed to the Arizona State Hospital. However, Joseph was released just 6 months later, despite prosecutors and even some of the psychiatrists involved warning that they weren't convinced he was safe to be back out in public. And 2 years after the hostage crisis, the same delusions appeared again. Joseph was arrested at a Phoenix convenience store after assaulting and threatening 2 clerks while screaming that Johnny Cash was going to kill his family. This time, the arrest triggered a probation violation from the original hostage case. Joseph was sent to prison, and he wouldn't be released until 2005, more than 2 decades after he first walked into that newsroom with a gun.
Wow.
On March 5th, 1989, a local...
Wow. I'm sure that could have been avoided if they just didn't let him go. Q-Log time! I don't know, freaking hey now. That's what I'll deal with during Q-Log. You piece of poop. You don't get to know what you got. Hey. Okie dokie. I will be right back. It is Q-Log time. I'll be back!
No one say anything about this.
You did it too late. I'm already back now. Ha ha! Caught you. Oh. What's the weather gonna be like on Saturday? Yay! Gonna be cloudy on Saturday. Who's broken? No. You really loud in there? Is the toilet okay? No. Hee.
Local news crew in Moncks Corner, South Carolina was filming the third day of the search for 5-year-old Justin Lee Turner. 2 days earlier, Justin's stepmother, Pamela Turner, had called the Berkeley County Sheriff's Office after he never came home from school.
Did you get a melon? No, I'll have to get it after stream because I have to cut it up.
According to Pamela, Justin had left that morning to catch the bus from a neighbor's property a few hundred yards away. But when the bus returned that afternoon,
You have Swimmer in 912. Yeah, these videos.
he wasn't on it.
Yeah! Here. Necotera! Thank you so much for the raid. Welcome on in. Welcome to Nonsense. Okay, now I'm not VR, so I can give you a quick shout out. Thank you so much for the raid! Welcome on in, Raiders. I hope you had a good stream. You don't need to know if I washed my hands or not. That is for me to know, and you to find out. Yeah, beautiful nonsense. True crime. I have ice cream. Etc., 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 etc.
And once police checked with the school and other witnesses, they learned that he never made it to the bus that morning. For the next 2 days, local police, the Berkeley County Rescue Squad, and dozens of volunteers searched the area around the Turner property off Horseshoe Road. They combed through the woods surrounding the home and checked sheds, storage spaces, and abandoned structures across the property, but still found no sign of Justin. By the morning of March 5th, search crews were getting ready to spend another full day going back around the same ground while a local TV crew from WCBD followed them around documenting the search.
Go all the way. Cross.
By it, the search barely lasted 5 minutes, as Justin's father, Victor Lee Turner, walked up to an old camper on the family's property and looked inside.
My son's in there. Everybody stand back. Everybody stand back.
Inside a cabinet in the camper was the body of 5-year-old Justin Lee Turner. And in the few seconds caught by the TV crew right after the discovery, Victor may have revealed something he never intended to. The Turner property was immediately locked down as a crime scene. State agents started searching through the camper in the family's home, checking for fingerprints and trying to figure out how Justin ended up hidden there in the first place. Autopsy results later showed that Justin was strangled to death. But the physical evidence from the camper led nowhere, and the case went on to stall for years to come. Without any solid lead, attention slowly shifted back to the moment Justin was found. Investigators found that, according to reports, the camper had already been searched during the first 2 days Justin was missing, and nothing had been found inside. So, if those earlier searches were done properly, then someone had placed Justin's body there after the search was already underway, while police, volunteers, and reporters were still moving around the property. That meant the killer had enough access to the Turner property to return to the camper without being noticed. Even the footage captured by the TV crew added to that suspicion. When Victor looked inside the camper, he didn't seem to rush in to check whether Justin was still alive. He didn't even call out his name or try to pull him out. He backed away almost immediately, as if he already knew what he was going to find. Now, to be fair, there's no single normal way for a parent to react to something like that. But investigators still found the behavior difficult to ignore, especially considering how quickly Victor went straight to the camper once the search resumed, then located Justin within seconds despite the camper having multiple drawers and cabinets. But despite all of these observations, the suspicion around Victor and Pamela still wasn't enough to hold up in court. Most of what pointed toward them was circumstantial, and without physical evidence separating normal family contact from the day Justin died, investigators had no way to turn those suspicions into something they could actually prove. As the years passed and the case went cold, Victor and Pamela eventually left Berkeley County and moved to South Carolina's upstate. And according to investigators, neither of them ever contacted law enforcement again to ask about the case or whether any progress had been made. For decades, that was where the suspicion stayed. But years later, a new possibility emerged that hinted at something far more chilling than a family cover-up. In September 2023, a law professor at the University of Virginia and her students were mapping the movements of serial killer Richard Mark Ivanitz when one of them uncovered something unexpected. Richard had served in the Navy, and after tracking down naval records, the student found that the ship he was assigned to arrived in Charleston on March 3, 1989, the same day Justin vanished. Monk's Corner, where the Turners lived, was only about a 50-minute drive from the port. And once researchers started comparing Richard's known crimes to Justin's case, the similarities became difficult to ignore. But just like the theory surrounding the Turners, there was still no physical evidence directly tying Richard to Justin's death. Unfortunately, the police couldn't question him because by that time, Richard had already been dead for more than 20 years. He had lost his life in a police chase in Florida in 2002 after one of his kidnapping victims escaped and identified him to authorities.
Wow.
To make matters worse, his body was cremated and his ashes scattered, leaving no way to test his DNA against anything from Justin's case. So instead of pulling suspicion away from the Turners, the theory only left investigators stuck between two possibilities that were both disturbing in completely different ways. Either someone close to Justin had killed him and hidden his body back on the property while the search was already happening, or a serial killer from outside had somehow entered that same space without leaving proof behind. The answer remained uncertain for decades, until investigators announced what looked like the first real break in the case in 35 years. Using newer forensic testing methods, investigators re-examined
the lady back there. I thought that guy had a really sick mullet.
Microscopic fibers recovered from Justin's shirt and compared them to a rope found inside the Turner home. According to them, the fibers were consistent with the possibility that the same rope had been used to strangle him. Shortly afterwards, 68-year-old Victor and 63-year-old Pamela Turner were both arrested and charged with Justin's murder in January 2024. And for the first time in decades, it looked like the case might finally be heading towards some kind of answer. But just a few months later, it fell apart again. In June 2024, Judge Roger Young dismissed the charges with prejudice, ruling that after 35 years, with over 20 witnesses either dead or unable to testify and no real new evidence on the table, there was no way to give the Turners a fair trial. Because it was dismissed with prejudice, the decision was permanent and the charges can never be refiled. So, after everything, the mystery of Justin's murder landed right where it started in 1989. And those few seconds of footage captured by WCBD may still be the closest thing this case ever gets to an answer. On the morning of June 26th,
what do you guys think? I don't know anything. That just sucks a lot.
1995, viewers in Mason City, Iowa tuned into their regular Monday morning newscast on KIMT.
Good Monday morning. Welcome to Daybreak. It's June 26th. I'm Jody Huisentrude.
And I'm Kevin Skarupa. Good morning, everybody. And
coming up, a wild weather weekend.
On screen was 27-year-old news anchor Jody Huisentrude, smiling through the early morning broadcast with her co-host Kevin Skarupa. The two hosts talked lightheartedly as they discussed the weather for the day ahead. At the time, there was no reason for anyone watching to remember these moments, but this would soon become the last broadcast Jody would ever appear in. The next morning, Jody was supposed to arrive at the station by 3:30 a.m. to prepare for the 6 a.m. newscast. But when she didn't show up, producer Amy Kunz called her apartment at around 4:10
Unfortunate name.
a.m. Jody answered, sounding like she had just woken up. She said she had overslept and told Amy she would be right there. That was the last confirmed contact anyone ever had with Jodi Huisentrude. By 6 a.m., when Jodi still hadn't arrived, Amy was forced to anchor the show without her. And that alone was enough to worry the newsroom, because Jodi had never missed a newscast before. Shortly after 7 a.m., her coworkers called the police. When officers arrived at her apartment, the reason she never made it to work became clear within minutes. Jodi's car was still parked just outside her apartment building, but everything around it suggested she had been attacked right as she was trying to leave. Scattered around the car were her belongings, including her shoes, blow dryer, hairspray can, earrings, and a bent car
We've heard of this one before, chat. We've heard this one before.
Nearby officers also found drag marks on the pavement and clear signs of a struggle. When investigators spoke to the people in the apartment complex, some residents said they had heard screams around the time Jodi would have been leaving for work. Another resident reported seeing a white Ford Econoline van idling nearby, but none of those details reached police until after Jodi was already gone. By the time they pieced everything together, they had an idea of what could have taken place. She probably made it to her car and was unlocking the front door when someone attacked her from behind, explaining the bent car key. But finding who did it would prove to be a far more challenging task. With no usable fingerprints, tire tracks, or clear eyewitnesses, investigators turned their attention to the people in Jodi's life to find the answer. The first name to draw serious attention was 49-year-old John Van Cise.
I forget what happened in it though.
Jodi had gone to his home to watch a video from a surprise birthday party he had thrown for her 2 weeks earlier. On its own, nothing about that visit seemed unusual, but to some of Jodi's friends, John's feelings towards her had started to seem strange. Even though they both described the relationship as a friendship, people around her sensed that his attachment to Jodi was turning into an obsession, to the point that he even named his boat after her. So naturally, when Jodi vanished just hours after leaving his home, all this context turned him into a potential suspect. But that suspicion never turned into proof. John cooperated with investigators, provided DNA, passed a polygraph test, and years later, police even placed GPS trackers on his vehicles to see if his movements might lead them somewhere. But none of it produced anything tying him to Jodi's disappearance. And as it turned out, John wouldn't be the last person in Jodi's life whose attachment to her caught investigators' attention. However, for the next 2 years, every possible lead investigators came across seemed to end in a similar way. Close enough to raise questions, not strong enough to answer them. This went on until 1997, when a new name entered the investigation. A man named Tony Jackson was arrested in the Minneapolis area around that time. When police looked backward through his timeline, 2 details stood out immediately. At the time Jodi disappeared, Tony had been living in Mason City, only 2 blocks from the KAMT station where she worked, and close enough to her apartment for the connection to matter. On top of that, the nature of his confirmed crimes involved stalking, abducting, and sudden violence against women, which fit the kind of offender who could have walked in an apartment parking lot before sunrise and attacked without warning. But once again, the case stopped at the same wall. His DNA didn't match the physical evidence recovered from the scene, and after a full review of the evidence and the polygraph, Mason City police confirmed that he wasn't considered a viable suspect in May of 1999.
What the
heck? Nearly 4 years had passed without Jodi being found, and on May 14, 2001, she was declared legally dead. But the case never really went cold. Her story became one of the most discussed disappearances in the country because of consistent national coverage. But even with that exposure, the investigation would go nearly 3 decades without any breakthrough strong enough to change the direction of the case. Then, in 2025, a Hulu documentary brought another name to the spotlight, and this time, the information came from someone who had known Jodi since childhood. Patty Niemeyer was one of Jodi's closest friends growing up, and she had been married to a man named Brad Millerburn. But according to Patty, Brad had been fixated on Jodi throughout their marriage.
Polygraphs are inadmissible in court. Yep, it's nothing but pseudoscience. It's false. Stupid.
Fixation eventually became one of the reasons for their divorce, which was finalized on June 23, 1995, exactly 4 days before Jodi disappeared. Once investigators looked closer at Brad, one detail pulled the case back to something witnesses had reported from the very beginning. At the time of the abduction, Brad had access to a white
You should do the news. I'd watch the news again. Okay, we can have a news show. I'll have a news show for my hiatus. Every day I'll post the news. It'll be nonsense.
Monoline van, which he used for work. It was the same type of vehicle someone had seen near Jodi's apartment that morning. Once this connection was established, investigators showed Patty a few sketches of a man who had reportedly been seen around Jodi's apartment complex before she disappeared. When Patty looked at these sketches, she seemed confident that they looked like Brad. Unfortunately, just like every other person of interest in this case, that lead never turned into anything meaningful. Brad denied any involvement with the disappearance and cooperated with investigators. And after multiple interrogations and thorough property searches, officials found no forensic link connecting him to the crime scene. So, even after thousands of tips and several persons of interest over the decades, no one has ever been arrested or charged for Jodi's disappearance. And more than 30 years later, the broadcast from the morning of June 26, 1995, still remains the last public record of Jodi Huisentrude alive.
Shitballs. Okay, let's watch this next one. I am getting hot. I wonder how hot I'm gonna get during VSEV.
On July 7th, 2006, a user under the name Box uploaded a new location to the website Urban Exploration Resource. The listing looked routine, an abandoned hotel in Atlanta. But buried in the photo gallery was a horrifying set of images that would set off one of the darkest internet mysteries that remains unsolved. Urban Exploration Resource, or UER, is an old online forum built around people documenting and discussing abandoned buildings and other forgotten urban spaces. This particular location was an abandoned hotel somewhere in Atlanta, Georgia, where Box and a few friends had gone to photograph whatever had been left behind before the building was cleared out. At first, nothing about the hotel seemed unusual. It had 4 floors, rows of ordinary-looking rooms, and wide interior walkways that looked down over a pool in the center of the building. And judging by the personal belongings still scattered throughout some of the rooms, it could not have been emptied very long ago. According to Box's own description of
Sexlexia is a very sexy learning disability. Damn, no, who in chat got sexlexia?
the location, though, the final chapter of the hotel had been anything but quiet. This hotel was built in 1972, renovated in 1993. It spent most of its life as a major chain hotel. In 2004, the hotel became independent of the major chain. The main business model after that was a long-term stay hotel. This attracted many drug dealers and other illegal business to the hotel, and it was raided by the DEA and local authorities at least once. After many years of trouble, it closed in February 2006. But even with such a grim history, nothing about the hotel's reputation could explain what Box found waiting in one of the rooms on the second floor. Attached to the location was a photo album titled Crime Scene-tastic, Not for the Faint of Heart, Fair Warning. And inside were 6 images of a stack of printed photographs that showed a middle-aged man who had almost certainly been murdered. Some of them showed him dead on the floor with blood pooled across the wood beneath him, while others showed the room where the crime took place with a bed and walls both heavily marked in blood. Naturally, once other forum users saw the gallery, the first thing they wanted to know was whether Box had taken the photographs with him when he left. Because if the prints were still there, they could be turned over to authorities.
Oh, it's photographs of a crime scene. It wasn't an actual crime scene, it was just photographs of one.
Who could figure out where they came from. But Box said he left them exactly where he found them. According to him, there were, quote, authorized people gutting the place, and he didn't want to be seen taking anything. He also explained how the photos were too morbid, and he'd been in too much shock to even consider it. Instead, he posted a map link to the location so anyone in the area could go and retrieve the photos for themselves.
This is the middle of nowhere. How is there any hotel here?
But when one of the users visited the very next day and searched through the building, the photographs were already gone. Now, one explanation could be that Box had taken the photographs from somewhere else and attached them to his post for attention. One user even asked if the photos were fake snuff. But when you try reverse searching the images, they don't show up in a single other place online. If they had been taken from a movie or some well-known crime case archive, you would think there must have been at least one other trace of them somewhere online. Which means these prints may be documentation of a genuine crime scene, and the only surviving record of it is this one forgotten forum post from 2006. Unfortunately, nothing about the post gives any clues as to where the prints came from or why they had been left there. Considering the criminal activity at the hotel before it shut down, the simplest theory is that the crime itself took place in one of the rooms, and the photos were taken by whoever did it. Maybe they were supposed to be trophies or some kind of record the killer never expected anyone else to find. And if the building really had been raided before it closed, it isn't hard to imagine someone fleeing in panic and leaving the prints behind along with everything else they couldn't take with them. However, there are some problems with this explanation. Firstly, in the photos box uploaded, the hotel rooms clearly appear to have carpeting, but the crime scene captured in the prints has wooden floorboards. On top of that, if the crime had happened somewhere inside the hotel, you'd expect at least one of the explorers wandering through to stumble into the room with walls and bedding soaked in blood. More importantly, some of the black and white photographs in the stack show the same body on a white surface that looks more like an autopsy table than anything inside an abandoned hotel room. This suggests the victim was found and processed by authorities at some point, so these prints could have belonged to someone connected to the investigation or to a case file where those images have been preserved as evidence. But even though this theory feels far more plausible compared to the idea that the killer simply left them behind, there's still no solid proof that connects the photographs to a real case. Looking through the missing person reports from the Atlanta area from that period doesn't include anyone whose details match the victims in the photographs. This might suggest the crime happened years before the pictures were discovered, or in a completely different part of the country. Unfortunately, this is where the trail simply stops. Even 20 years later, there is still no answer for why someone would carry evidence of a horrific murder into a building scheduled to be torn down, only to toss it into a pile of old clothes and just leave it there. On February 26th,
I've never been to an abandoned building before.
2026, a series of videos began spreading throughout the unregulated corners of the internet, capturing what would soon become one of the most horrifying crimes in Poland's recent history. At first, the footage gave viewers almost no context for what they were seeing. It showed a teenage boy standing in a garage, calmly swinging an axe through the air, like he was
2026?
2026, a series of videos began spreading throughout the unregulated corners of the internet.
This is some new shit! So it could be fake. Could be AI. Could be fake. Who knows?
Capturing what would soon become one of the most horrifying crimes in Poland's recent history. At first, the footage gave viewers almost no context for what they were seeing. It showed a teenage boy standing in a garage, calmly swinging an axe through the air, like he was practicing to hit something. But the next clip revealed exactly what that practice may have been for. For this video, the camera was inside a home late at night. The same boy entered a room where two people appeared to be asleep. He positioned the camera so the room was clearly in frame and stepped back toward them. He then picked up the axe and began swinging, before either victim had a chance to wake up. As disturbing as this footage was, it unfortunately didn't seem much different from the kind of material that circulates on gore sites. These platforms are full of violent videos, stripped of context, reposted so many times over the years that no one knows when they were filmed or where. But as these particular clips began spreading, viewers began noticing that they clearly were not something just pulled from an old archive. Instead, everything about them, from the video quality to the interior of the house, seemed fairly modern, which meant the gruesome event it captured may have been more recent than people first realized. With this realization, the clips broke out of these gore sites and spread across social media and private messaging apps across Poland. By 4 a.m. the next morning, enough people had forwarded the clips to police that authorities were already treating the footage as evidence from an active crime scene. Using whatever was visible in the background of the clips, investigators were able to trace the footage to a property in the small village of Cuemew in southern Poland within a few hours. The boy in the videos was identified as 17-year-old Łukasz G. When officers arrived at the home, their worst fears were confirmed. They had found his 38-year-old stepfather and 87-year-old great-grandmother lifeless, right where the camera had shown them being attacked. With the crime now confirmed, officers began searching the area surrounding the property, which led them roughly 45 kilometers away to a cluster of bushes by a nearby river where Łukasz was hiding. Given what had just been found inside the house, many would have expected him to panic, run, or try to deny what happened. But the 17-year-old showed no resistance during his arrest and seemed unnervingly calm. His behavior made it almost impossible to make sense of what was going on or what his motive was, until investigators found one last piece of media he had uploaded after the crime. It was a roughly 2-minute video titled "My Last Statement." In it, Łukasz sat in front of the camera and introduced himself as a family murderer before admitting that he had killed 2 people inside his home. Speaking in the same flat, detached tone throughout, he then described the days leading up to the murders. He claimed that someone at work had been humiliating and insulting him for weeks until he felt he simply couldn't take it anymore. But instead of directing his anger toward the person he claimed had mistreated him, Łukasz turned it toward his own family. In his mind, because his stepfather kept pushing him to go back to that same workplace, he had somehow become part of the very thing tormenting him, and so had everyone else living under that roof. Rather than sounding horrified by what he had done, Wukash started justifying his crime, saying that, in his opinion, murder was a part of human life, that people had been killing one another since the beginning, and that the only difference now was that someone like him would be called a psychopath for it. Despite that self-awareness, he insisted that he wasn't sick and promised that he wouldn't take another life again. But to anyone watching the videos, his insistence that he wasn't mentally ill was the clearest sign that he was. On one hand, he looked composed enough to lecture a camera about the nature of killing, yet on the other hand, he was unable to see anything wrong with the 2 bodies he'd just left behind. Looking back, it's hard not to see him as a deeply disturbed teenager who gradually lost his grip on reality. Eventually, Wukash was charged with double homicide and now faces up to 30 years in prison. In the time since, the videos have largely been scrubbed from the internet, with Polish police asking people to stop sharing them out of respect for the families. Unfortunately, footage like this never...
Yeah, they were boring his ass crack. What an idiot.
...disappears and continues to get passed around in the darkest corners of the internet.
Someone at work is bullying me. I'm gonna kill my dad and grandma.
The internet is just one of those things that has a way of pulling you into places you never expected to end up. Researching these videos, I constantly get lost in endless forums and disturbing websites where, before I know it, my entire day has been lost. Zocdoc for sponsoring this video.
What the hell?
In December 2014, a Japanese website appeared online with a slogan on its home
Look, chat, Japan.
page that immediately explained the kind of depraved place it was. When translated to English, it read, "I wish my husband would die right now. I think about it every day." The site was called danasheen.com, which translates to diehusband.com, and it functioned as an anonymous forum where wives could write about the men they were married to. First looking at the site, most of the entries read like desperate venting from women who had been holding something in for years. "Nothing good has happened in the 10 years I've been with this guy. He thinks it's okay when I'm not good and complains if he doesn't like something. Does the world revolve around him? I'm just annoyed by being with this rude jerk. He's been lying to me for 20 years, and I, being foolish, have been deceived all this time. But I've reached my limit. When I talk to him, he just lies, and when he's at a loss for words, he stays silent." Posts like these fill hundreds of pages on the site, with anonymous wives describing husbands who cheated, gambled away household money, came home drunk, and treated their family.
Yeah, we have seen this one before. Definitely heard of this one before. Yeah, it's not Dana Sheen. Dana Sheen.
Selfishly. But digging deeper into the posts, that resentment would sometimes turn into something far more disturbing. You see, the site was themed around the popular manga Death Note. Death Note is a Japanese manga series in which writing someone's name in a supernatural notebook causes their death. And the users treated the forum as exactly that. An online notebook addressed directly to the Grim Reaper, begging him to kill their husbands for them. "How long is this scumbag husband going to live? Grim Reaper, please, please come and take this scumbag husband away quickly. As soon as possible, please. Good morning, Grim Reaper. I wish my husband would die right now. I think about it every day. He's a truly awful husband. My heart is always in prayer. Please, please, please die soon." The site's admin even kept a running counter on the homepage tracking how many husbands had supposedly died, as if the forum itself were taking credit. And when a husband did actually die, the tone of the site became even more unsettling, as the women returned in ominous celebrations. For instance, one woman described finding her husband cold in bed one morning and calling an ambulance. And her post reveals exactly what she felt when the responders confirmed that he had passed away. "Honestly, I'm so happy, so happy. Thank you, Grim Reaper." While other users in the comments enviously congratulated her. And as unsettling as all of this tragedy is, these posts aren't even close to the darkest thing on the site. But once you understand the world these women come from, the site starts to look more complicated than it first appears. Japan is a fairly conservative society when it comes to divorce. The simplest way to end a marriage is through mutual consent. If the husband refuses to sign the divorce papers, the wife is forced through mediation and lengthy court proceedings just to get out of a life she no longer wants to be in. Even after separation, most women face judgment from their own families and communities, because divorce carries a level of shame that makes leaving feel like a public failure. And for single mothers, it's even worse, as the pressure is often tied to money. Many of the women writing on Dana Sheen described being financially trapped and unable to afford a separate life. So, to many of them, the death of their husband genuinely appears to be the only way to ever live a happy life again. And when a platform is built entirely around this belief, it becomes the perfect place.
This is why I'm never gonna get married, chat. I'm gonna stay with you forever and ever and ever and ever. And you guys can get married to effigies of me. Yeah. The cardboard cutouts and the cute plushes. Yeah.
Place for someone already on the edge to
Until she goes on hiatus, of course. Hey. Rich, tall, muscular woman with a big fat conch. Those are my standards. And until those standards are met, I'm fine being single. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, but you guys should also get married to each other. And oh my gosh, I feel like I have a hiccup caught in my throat. Whenever I cough, I feel like I'm gonna hiccup. Yeah. Yeah, you guys should all get married to each other and kiss each other so that I can watch. Yeah. Make Yowie real for me. Yeah.
convince themselves that taking matters into their own hands is the next logical step, which is exactly what happened. In some of the most extreme entries on the site, begging the Grim Reaper wasn't enough. One woman wrote, "I want to somehow find a way to kill my husband without getting caught. I'll pretend to be sad when he dies." Sadly, she wasn't the only one. Some depraved users admitted to preparing bug-infected food and feeding it to their husbands to make them sick. But a few went even further and outlined step-by-step instructions on how to poison a husband by lacing his drinks with drugs that shut organs down slowly without raising suspicion. And because these posts are written anonymously, there's no way of knowing whether they are simply dark fantasies or genuine confessions from women who actually went through with it, which suddenly makes the death counter a lot harder to look at. There's no way to know how many of those deaths happened on their own and how many were planned on this very website. But as depraved as these entries were, some of the hardest ones to read weren't directed at husbands at all. Some of them were written by women who started hoping for their own end. And once you start reading entries like these, it becomes clear that many of the women using this site weren't driven by cruelty. They were writing from places of exhaustion, fear, and years of ill treatment. For some, the darkest thoughts were the only ones that still made sense. And when you read what they were actually living through, it's hard not to understand why. One woman wrote, "My heart is dead. It's being killed by the verbal abuse of my husband, who denies my very existence. When he's in a bad mood, he takes it out on me. He says it's all my fault, that this happened because my character is rotten, connecting even the most unrelated things and denying everything about me. I've tried to forget, to ignore it, and endured it until now, but I can't take it anymore." For others, the ill treatment went far beyond words. "When I was 3 months pregnant with my first child, he pushed me down the stairs during an argument, fracturing a bone that took 6 months to heal. When I was in my 9th month of pregnancy with my first child, he drove me to a remote mountain area, threw me out of the car, and dragged me around." In the end, Dana Sheen, or Die Husband, was built on the desperation of women who felt trapped in lives they couldn't escape. But that same desperation created the perfect cover for people with far darker intentions. On the evening of February 22nd,
This is why we don't get married. I wonder if the announcer would be so generous with the excuses if the lads are writing such fabrics. No! Stinky men! Ow! I think I'm just picking at my nails, and it's causing more, Hangnails to pop up. I think I need a friggin' fidget spinner. I'm always fiddling with something. Use a nail clipper, put mittens on, but it's so much funner to pick at it. Here. What if we met at the Microsoft headquarters? What happens at the Microsoft headquarters? Yeah. Oh, I wanna pick at my freaking. And you know what? I guess it's better to pick at my nails than it would be to pick at my face. I don't even have anything to pick at anymore. Because I'm not a teenager with hormones anymore. So I don't have pimples. Play the freaking video.
In 2023, a 26-year-old Microsoft employee was walking home from the Microsoft.
That's what you said. What if we met at the Microsoft headquarters? I was too busy picking at my freaking nail to even look up at the video. That's so funny.
Microsoft One Estera building at around 5:45 p.m. when he noticed a man approaching him while shouting at the top of his lungs. But before he could make sense of what was happening, he was punched to the ground and stabbed 13 times. The entire attack lasted roughly 10 seconds, but it was enough to leave him with a skull fracture, a brain bleed, and nerve damage in both his hands. Just as suddenly as it had started,
But
it
he's
stopped.
alive?
A few bystanders shouted at the attacker, but he simply fled the scene and walked down the street to his own apartment roughly 4 blocks away, leaving a trail of blood that a SWAT team would later follow straight to his door. The attacker was identified as 27-year-old Joseph Richard Cantrell, who was also a software engineer at Microsoft. That connection immediately led police to suspect a workplace rivalry.
Whoa, check it out,
According
unit.
to the victim, he had never seen Joseph before in his life, and the two didn't even work in the same building. So, the more investigators learned about the attack, the less it looked like Joseph had been targeting someone he knew. And the only place that seemed to offer any explanation was Joseph's own website.
Who up in
When
chat,
the investigators went through his
Microsoft.
personal computer, they found a hidden link to a text file. It was a 234,000-word journal that Joseph had been writing for years and uploaded to the internet just hours before he carried out the attack. And somewhere inside those pages was the answer to why a random Microsoft employee nearly bled to death on a sidewalk that evening. But to understand what was inside the journal, you first need to understand what Joseph believed about himself. And the clearest window into that was the About section on his website. Alongside other surface-level information, Joseph wrote about experiencing what he called neural disturbances, where he claimed to have danced and conversed with processions of rainbow ghost women who kept him company through the night. So, before the journal even began, his own introduction already suggested
There's no way that's on the website. There's no way.
In an ordinary way. And those hallucinations would appear again and again throughout the journal, often during some of Joseph's most important decisions. He had given himself a diagnosis, neural deceleration disorder, a condition he believed caused his neurons to fire at a slower rate, leaving him intellectually suppressed unless he corrected it himself. And the way he corrected it would be the first of many unsettling things revealed throughout his journal. Although Joseph had tagged the file as fiction, his interest...
I want a rainbow ghost woman to keep me company. Hey! I'm right here! Rude.
Production said the exact opposite. According to it, the journal had started as a way to track his drug usage, but eventually became what he described as an overall life journal and literary practice. What followed was a 20-page long catalog of every substance Joseph had consumed in an attempt to treat his self-diagnosed disorder.
Wow.
But Joseph didn't write like someone trying to break free of an addiction. He wrote like a scientist reviewing data. He described amphetamines as his ticket to life, the substance he believed was the only thing correcting his disorder, and he promised to remain addicted until he died. At high enough doses, he wrote, they produced rainbow women and even a white light. After the drug catalog, the journal shifted into a chronological account of Joseph's life, starting from before his birth, his mother's drinking and smoking during pregnancy, and his father being estranged before Joseph even arrived. Within the first few entries, Joseph revealed that he'd been prescribed Adderall for ADHD while he was still in kindergarten, and that he had renounced his faith by 7 years old. The further the journal went, the heavier the entries became. Eventually, Joseph made it out of Columbus and into Georgia Tech, where he earned a bachelor's degree in computer science. On paper, it was a remarkable achievement for someone who had grown up in poverty, but the journal made it clear that as his abilities grew, so did his obsessions. He taught himself game development and immediately put that skill to use building a series of deeply disturbing projects that he proudly displayed on his website. Like Profit Launcher, a 2D shooter where the player guns down an endless wave of religious figures including Jesus, Buddha, and others. Its tagline read, "Aim to offend the pillars of humanity's most sacred," and it was eventually banned from both Steam and the Google Play Store. But what his games revealed was less about shock value and more about Joseph's own worldview. They reflected a pattern of hostility towards specific groups that would only deepen over time. Because as the journal entries moved into his adult years, the tone shifted from clinical self-observation to something much more dangerous. With each passing entry, his paranoia grew more serious, to the point where he was convinced that movies were making direct references to his life, which, by the way, is one of the most common symptoms of psychosis. For instance, in one entry from December 2021, he listed dozens of films he believed were a part of a coordinated effort to erase his medical history, give him a disease, and push him toward harming himself. By this point, Joseph had developed a specific fear of Jewish, Black, Brown, and South Asian people, and in his mind, that fear had calcified into an active conspiracy against him. He believed he was being gang-stalked, and he had very particular theories about how it was being done. In one entry from October 2021, he wrote about how Black and Latino gangs were working to get him sued, jailed, or killed, all for their own amusement, and that they were doing it all through hijacked vending machines and compromised IT departments cutting his internet connection. Perhaps one of the most unsettling parts about it all is how no one around Joseph suspected anything while his mental stability continued to derail completely. Throughout the last year, he remained fully employed at Microsoft as a software engineer. He sat in team meetings, collected a paycheck, and then came home to journal about those same meetings, writing about his Indian colleagues in papers filled with racial hostility. By the summer of 2022, Joseph's paranoia had reached the point where he could no longer stay in one place. He moved out of conventional housing and into a motel, and when the feeling of being watched didn't stop, he moved into another one. He wrote in July 2022 that for 2 years it had felt like an enemy was sitting outside his door the entire time, and that he wanted to learn guitar, but the moment he picked one up, his mind would flood with images of people surrounding his room waiting to get him. By this point, even Joseph himself seemed to recognize that his mental state was deteriorating. He wrote that he believed he was becoming paranoid. It was one of the few moments in the entire journal where his self-awareness broke through. Before, it was gone, buried under hundreds more pages of the same spiraling fear. 8 years earlier, Joseph had described the amphetamines as his ticket to life. But after 234,000 words of paranoia, hallucinations, and isolation, it was difficult to see what kind of life that ticket had actually led him toward. Roughly 2 hours after his final entry, he walked out of his apartment and attacked a man he had never met. That man was 26-year-old Vincent Labonte, the Microsoft engineer from the beginning of this story. Vincent underwent multiple surgeries to survive the wounds Joseph had inflicted. When police broke down the door of Joseph's apartment, he was found trying to destroy the evidence, a knife and gloves, still covered in blood. He was arrested and eventually charged with attempted second-degree murder and first-degree assault. However, no one has been able to determine why Joseph chose Vincent Labonte that evening. But the journal, now only available...
This is my biggest fear. Becoming insane. Because, like, what do you even do? You know?
On Internet Archives seems to offer the only explanation that makes sense. Because by the end of it, his paranoia had grown so extreme that almost anyone could become an enemy in his mind. On the surface, planecrashinfo.com looks like one of the plainest websites on the internet. In 1997, a researcher named Richard Kabajian created it. As the name suggests, it's an old aviation database that catalogs virtually every plane crash in modern aviation history. But one page on this site contains something far more disturbing than any accident report. The site documents everything from minor landing gear failures...
Toronto, Canada. Ow! All you do is become a VTuber, I suppose. The lesser of the evil. Perfect website to visit before going on a plane trip. Yeah, I'll look at this website before I go to New York City. Are you winning? Yeah, there were 0 fatalities. Yay!
Passenger walked away alive to crashes that left nothing but wreckage and a death toll in the hundreds. For each of these aviation accidents going back over a century, the site logs various statistical data, including what aircraft was involved, when it happened, how many people were on board, and the number who didn't survive. But in some cases, it also documents how and why they happened, which means that for some of the worst disasters in aviation history, it's possible to trace step by step how a single overlooked mistake ended hundreds of lives. Unfortunately, Aeroflot Flight 3352 was one of those recorded crashes. On October 11, 1984, the aircraft was preparing to land at Omsk Airport when the flying control officer fell asleep and failed to inform the controllers that the runway wasn't clear. When the aircraft touched down at 240 kilometers per hour, the pilots had barely a second to spot the maintenance vehicles directly in their path before slamming into them, resulting in the death of 174 of the 179 people on board. But as disturbing as it is to read these summaries, the most unsettling part of the site is one specific page titled Last Words. This page is a long collection of voice recordings, each one capturing the final seconds inside the cockpit before impact. In some of them, you can hear the exact moment a pilot realizes that nothing they do will save the plane. For instance, in this clip, you can hear how a controlled situation turned into a chilling panic as the pilot realized the runway was too short only after it was too late.
Flaps. There we go. Not flying. Not flying.
That was East Coast Jet Flight 81 on July 31st, 2008, which crashed into a cornfield beyond the runway, killing all 8 people on board. There are dozens of recordings like this on the site, each capturing the final moments from a different crash and a different crew. In some, you can clearly hear warning messages that pilots deliberately ignore.
Terrain ahead. Terrain ahead. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Very rough target. Pull up. Control with the bigger rock.
This was Polish Air Force Flight PLF 101, and on that day, pilots had to deal with extremely low visibility due to heavy fog. They attempted a manual descent, but as they got closer to the ground, they were given automated terrain warning alarms. Alarms which they ignored, trusting in their own abilities. The aircraft struck a set of trees and rolled.
These accidents help with making the future, but at what cost? Dude, literally, it is so scary to think about that sometimes. How, like, every safety procedure we have today was made because someone died, you know? So, what's out there that we don't know about, that people are still gonna have to die to find out? They didn't come up because they didn't know English. Damn. Nerfed.
Uncontrollably a short distance from the runway. All 96 people on board were killed, including the president of Poland at the time. The final moments of which are forever immortalized on planecrashinfo.com, alongside dozens of other catastrophic plane crashes.
We should go on that website. Next time I go on an airplane, we'll go take a gander on that website. Da 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 da. Yeah. Yeah, I think something is wrong. The stuff, I'll have to go back and look at all the, whatever. I'll do that after stream. Well, after stream is right now. Oops. Yeah. Thank you for the biddies. EPQ. Not EP, but I am hot. So I wanna go have some watermelon. Congratulations on 10K subscribers on YouTube, Cat. Thank you so much. Mwah. Air conditioner when? Right now. Oh yeah, I feel like going. But it has zero effect on what the circumstances are. Hopefully they listen to the cover. No! I gotta make a new one. A better one. Okay, chat. Thank you so much for cuming today. I'm pretty sure that I can stream on Friday. So yeah, look forward to a Friday stream, but there will definitely be a Saturday stream because of Reserve. Here. I love you all so much. Thank you all for queuing today. So fun hanging out with you guys all the time. Yeah. Yeah. I love you so much. Yeah. Okie dokie. Good night. I will see you guys on Friday, hopefully. Yeah. Thank you so much for queuing. Mwah.